Well, we're back, man. We're back stronger than ever.
I get no
I got knocked down. The flu. But I'm back, and I am, I would say, close to 100%. But yes, we are back. Thank you for your patience. Was out last week, broke our streak, but streaks are made to be broken. They're also streaks are also made to be started over again. That's what we'll do today.
New streak.
First time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. I know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and just podcasts in general. In general, your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk a whole lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their very first 5K and sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between and from all over the country. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can hop into Facebook, search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Great community, great resource on what can be an oftentimes confusing sport with a whole lot of information. You can ask questions in there and learn a lot. It's a great wide range of athletes in there as well, for a lot of experience and always willing to lend a helping hand. We don't do sponsors and we don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, I was just doing some quick calculations, and we were planning, we've always talked about going to 1,000 podcasts and hanging it up and walking in the sunset. But now if we're going to break our old streak, we got to go to 1,269. So
it's funny. I was thinking about the exact same thing the other day. I was like, damn it, I totally messed up the streak. I'm not getting a lot of pressure from Mike, but, because it's twice a week for, 6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been on again, but I jumped the gun because I'm obviously a little bit rusty. It's November 22nd, 2022. It's Thanksgiving week, people, and this is the Crushing Iron podcast. I guess we should say 635, but basically it's number one. As we're starting over. Baby. So this is podcast number one, and we'll go to 1,000. But no, it's the streak was broken. So you calculated what 1,200 and what 60 something?
69, I guess. That you just added 269 to our life.
I had 269. That's a lot of pressure, man.
Holy crap, man. Well, shit happens, and it is day one. I always think about, these streaks, because a lot of people do the run streak and all that kind of thing. And then it's like, it's weird because actually I wasn't even thinking about this, but that little bit I was talking to you about before we started about how you got to keep weeding. Like you go in the weed the garden and shit. And I've written about that because my mom loves to garden and she loves to pick weeds, pull weeds, I guess is the accurate statement. But she just likes it. She go out and I've always marveled at that. And it made me think, because like when you're done weeding and everything's really pristine in your garden and everything, you look back at it and you're like, damn, that thing is done. But then like 2 days later, those weeds are back. So it just keeps coming, and that's, I guess, the thing about the streak, you can't beat it. You know what I mean? It's like we have to keep going. And it's not done.
It's kind of a relief. Yeah, it's kind of a relief now that it's like, because it's 6 years of,
now we've done sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, we've casted on major holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and through New losses, and life and moves and all. We still haven't missed a beat, but man, I got taken out. But yeah, streaks are made to be broken. But what do? You get back on the horse and you get back to work. I mean, that's just kind of the deal. And again, like I think One of the things, at least the last week, that I've been thinking about, because like it's been like, feels like forever, like 2 weeks since we've podcasted. But Hayden was sick, Allie was sick, and I was like, man, I dodged a bullet. I'm good to go. I've done all these things, and of course, like a month ago, I was like, I haven't missed a day of work in like 7 years, and then life was like, you know what? Have a seat. And if you can't have a seat on your own, I'm going to make you have a seat with the flu. And I was trying to dodge it, and I got hit by a bus. I texted you. I was like, dude, I can't go. And as much as I wanted to, I was like, listen, you can either show up, right, and do a half-ass podcast and not feel well, and just to make, because I kept telling myself, I was like, if it's Sunday at 10 p.m., I'm going to roll into the office for 20 minutes and just give it hell. And then I kept thinking, but what is that going to even do? So, because listen, you and I both work with a lot of athletes, and this is actually the time of year where a lot of people create these streaks, right? Oh, I haven't missed a day of working out in 2 months, or I'm going to run for 100 days in a row, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. But what usually happens is you put so much stock into the streak that once the streak is over, you didn't create a habit. You were just obsessed with a streak, and you put all your eggs in one basket, and then once it's done, you're done. I mean, I know a lot of people that have done like the 100 days of running thing, and then basically given up running for months because they were toast. Like they had nothing else they wanted to give, because they were over. They took so much mental and emotional willpower that they negated basically the benefits of all that running with taking more time off. They just ran for 100 days straight. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna go back in the office. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna keep this streak alive. And then I kept thinking, like, but what? Why are you gonna put in a half-ass effort just for the sake of keeping a streak? Right. And I think athletes do that a lot with their training. It's like, but I got to go out today because I haven't missed a day, when, we tell people this too. Like you talk about, pulling weeds and showing up and falling in love with the work. And because you and I are both the same way, like landscaping and cutting grass, it's like therapy to me. Like I love doing stuff like that because, one, it's never ending. Like you think about, from a business model standpoint, being a person who cuts grass and landscaping is like, you're never not going to have a job, because there's always going to be shit to do because people want their grass taken care of. But when it comes to training, and we've mentioned this before, like people who never miss a workout, I honestly feel like that's a bad thing, because there has to be opportunities and time in there where you have worked out a few times, more than a few times, when you shouldn't have, right? You've been too tired, you've been too sick, you took time away from your family, and just for the sake of the streak, right? Just for the sake of the streak, not for the sake of longevity, not for the sake of fitness, not for the sake of getting better, but for the sake of the streak, right? And so I think it's a great topic in terms of, longevity, sustainability, because process-oriented things, there is no end. Right. And that's not streak driven. Right. It's being part of a process. There are ups, there are downs, there's successes, there are, failures, there's obstacles, there's triumphs, there's all these different things, but you never stop. Right. No one knows when their triathlon journey is going to be, and no one knows when you're going to stop getting, like, no one really knows. Like if you go back and look at, let's say you and I retire, and since I've elongated this whole business that we've been doing for 7 more years, let's say we both retire in 10 years, we're never going to look back and from a triathlon in general, and we're not going to look back and be like, you know what? It was that Wednesday, right? That Wednesday in 2025 in June, that's when I finally started to see my fitness decline, that I couldn't get any faster. You're never going to know. You're never going to know. You're never going to have any idea when you had the last opportunity to get better. It's just the endless pursuit of something that you kind of have to fall in love with to keep wanting to get better at. And you, like you said before we started the podcast, you talked about, pulling weeds, and it's so true, because you go out there and it takes forever, right? And you have to be very specific about it. It's kind of, monotonous. You pick a weed, you pull it away, you stacking, all whatever you want to do with it. And you look back at your mulch bed and you're like, man, this looks pristine, perfect, right? And then you come out the next morning and there's a fucking weed.
Yeah.
Right? It grows up, and it rains overnight or something, or you mowed the grass and you got grass in the mulch bed, and it's like, yeah, here we go again. Like, it's one of those things that is never ending. But when you see like the most successful athletes, again, not success as in the most awards or performance, driven accolades, that, that kind of hang their hat on, the ones that are the most successful, that get the most out of themselves, are the ones that do this for the longest period of time. And that's not a streak, right? It's about loving what you do and not the outcome, but instead of who it makes you.
Exactly. I was thinking about quickly I bet we're top 10 ever right now of all streaks for podcasters. 2 in a row for 6 years, or 2 a week.
Yeah.
But
until I messed it up, make me feel guilty right now.
No, but I bet we are. I mean, I know I listen to a ton of podcasts. People miss weeks
probably
all
up
the time.
there. Yeah.
But when you say that, it reminds me of having a streak is in a different way. It's kind of like training for a race or an Ironman, because I get in a different groove and it becomes about the race, and it becomes in a way, twisted way, about the streak of it all. And it's different, because when you're in that kind of mindset, you have a streak mentality. And I like what you said, it doesn't build habits necessarily, it just builds your streak. And that usually is what happens is after I do a full, it's like I hang it all up. I did it. It's done. And then 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, I realize that my body weeds are starting to come back. It's kind of like I was kind of thinking about it in terms of like what a weed could be, almost like building fat. It just keeps kind of just churning out, man. And if you're losing your fitness, but for now, because I don't know if you probably did. I've been putting a couple videos, or last 3 days I've done videos from our old camps and stuff like that. And the main reason I've been kind of doing that is I have a lot of old footage and stuff that's never been seen by everybody, because I'm always taking video and pictures at camps and races and all that kind of stuff. And I want to do that. Plus it's my sort of one of my passions is doing video work and creativity and things like that. So I've been trying to build a habit by because what it does to me is it's something I enjoy. Once I get into it, it's always difficult to get started. So I want to keep pushing it through, and I also want to kind of keep doing things different. I'm going to try and build variety in the style and things like that, because for me it's all about being engaged and being mentally charged up about stuff like that. And I think the same thing goes for training. And this time of the year, that's why I'm always trying to tell people, it's like, our goal right now is really just to kind of find out what feels good and do it, and always, just sort of feel good in life, because that's what happens is when we're trying to drive for all these goals and stuff, we push through all these kind of things. And I think right now when you got a race, maybe next summer or whatever it is, it's like, man, if you can just build a good habit and understand what it means to get pleasure out of pulling weeds, so it's like, how do I get pleasure out of showing up and doing body maintenance, so that to me is like a very big challenge. And I think it's also the secret to being successful in this sport, or probably everything, is finding joy in the process and understanding it as like, hey, your body needs maintenance. You need to take care of it, and you need to do stuff for it every day to make yourself feel better in the long run.
Yeah, one of the as you were talking, I looked up one of the definitions of streak is a continuous period of specified success or luck, and I think that's one of the biggest areas that I think we've kind of been focusing on and kind of talking about in a roundabout way the last few weeks is, as a continued success, or a specific area of success or luck. And the biggest thing there is how you define success, right? Because one of the biggest obstacles I think athletes have, or that and most athletes create for themselves, is what their definition of success is, right? And what drives them to train, what drives them to want to get better, what drives them to do certain races, what drives them to get up in the morning. What's your definition of success, right? Is it a end goal, or is it these small, seemingly insignificant things you need to accomplish or want to accomplish every day that you feel that fulfill you, right? That give you some kind of positive, immediate reinforcement, right? Whether it's in, because most of it's just sticking to the routine. Like you make a commitment to yourself, right? Because that's part of the fulfillment, I think, of people when they, so I'm going to see how long I can go without having sugar, right? And they last like a week, and then they go on a bender with like 6 bags of like Reese's peanut butter cups. Or I'm going to run for 100 days. What happens when people, outline a streak? The benefit that most people get isn't from the actual streak itself, right? The running or the swimming or the fitness. The biggest success people see from things like that is, I can commit to something fully. I can find a way to get it done. I am showing myself I can be committed. I can stick with something for a long period of time. Those are things that transfer to longevity in the sport, because you're showing yourself, man, if I can, and I tell myself all the time, when I'm thinking about like, my sobriety or this podcast or whatever, it's like, man, if you really, really want to do something, like you can be as consistent at anything as you want to be, right? Because you've proven that, these are two, big examples that you can do these things for years and never miss, right? And that's a huge deal. The lessons you learn from that are, and again, like when you talk about, because those are things that people try to do this time of year, with weight loss or with trying to jumpstart training, is they try to start streaks. Or I'm not going to miss a workout for 2 weeks. Or I'm not going to miss a workout for this. Or I'm not going to, and they set these limitations on or rules that they can or can't do certain things, because that's what they feel like is going to jumpstart them to, again, better fitness, weight loss, whatever it is. But one of the biggest things people learn when they do these streaks is, again, not from the result that you gained from it, that you set out. It's the habits that you created, so you're showing yourself, hey, I can create habits, and that's what leads to success, right? People that are successful in business or relationships or sport, those all cross over, because if you want to be successful, you know what it takes to be successful. In those traits and those characteristics and those process-oriented things you have to focus on, those all overlap, right? It's just the end goal is different. I want to be, the best entrepreneur possible. All right, I got to do this, this, and this, and I know I can. I got to stick with it. I got to work hard. I can't stop growing. I've got to challenge myself. I've got to be consistent. All those, I always joke about AA. It's like, if you want to get better at anything, or remove something from your life, like I removed alcohol, just replace alcohol with whatever else it is, gambling, sex, drugs, sugar, whatever it is. And you can follow these steps and be successful. Same thing goes with sport, right? And being successful in life is like, you've got to work hard. You've got to, if you want to be successful, you've got to, you got to have a good head on your shoulders. You got to be smart. You got to, rest when you need to. You got to recover. You got to prioritize sleep. You got to eat. You got to feel, because you want to be able to, have your wits about you. All these, everything transfers over, right? And so all these things are applicable to every single aspect in our life, but we focus so much on, especially in racing, that we have this one specific goal that we have, like, which is an expiration day. We talked about that before with racing, and you're sitting here in, November, almost December, and you're like, but can I keep a streak going until next September? Right? So I want to start a streak next. That's a lot of pressure, because then what happens when I get to like, March 16th and I've had this perfect streak of whatever it is from, December 1st all the way to now, and I've gotten so deep, and I'm like, but man, what if I stop? What am I going to lose? Are you going to lose anything? No, it's just a day, right? Streaks are made to be broken. Records are made to be broken. But it's what you learn about yourself. Again, not what you gain, but what you learn about yourself that you can transfer into other areas of your life that will continue to make you successful no matter what happens, or when the streak ends. But because listen, they're all going to end, right? Streaks end. All records are made to be broken, and that's the beauty of it. And if you asked, I think most people in sports, if they set out from the time they fell in love with the sport to break a record, they would say no. But the reason they broke the record is because they stayed in the sport for a long time. And then why they did that? Because they loved it, right? You don't start from the end. You start from the, what it means to be successful. And that's as they fell in love with the sport. They love to do it. So they did it for a long time. And that's how you break records. And that's how you get the most out of yourself.
Yeah. And that takes some flexibility, man. I think, you go out there and try and break a streak. I mean, what we're doing with the podcast, I'll be honest, we had to make some adjustments on certain days when we were going to do it. And we had to do it a little later in the morning for me, because if it would have been something we're doing it at 7:30 or 8 a.m. every morning, this streak would have been shot about 150 podcasts ago. I've been like, dude, yeah, no shit. It may not be here. No, but seriously, I think, once you get, the thing about a streak is like, I know that's sort of a kind of a gimmicky thing now. At this time of the year, a lot of times with the run, or I'm going to do this every day for the next 2 months or 90 days or whatever it might be. And, I mean, it's so weird because it sounds like something that you're forcing in some ways. And if you're going to, for me, like my thing last year was my streak started in the summer. Like before the race, like that's kind of when you want to be really dialed in and you kind of have the momentum and you want to be solid as you're going into the race. But right now it is about doing something from the position of love and what it might feel like and what you want to do, particularly on certain days, and just kind of going through the motions. It's like, let's figure out what today is all about. And I don't have to go running today if I don't want to, but you can do little things along the way that are going to make you feel better in the long run. As a coach, I don't know about you, but like sometimes if, I check out at Training Peaks on Friday and then I'll go back in Monday and I'll check Saturday and it's, coach, I felt like shit. I don't know. This is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I missed that. And then Sunday is like, I felt great today, So it's like this rebound thing. And I'm always like wondering why, like how these things happen, and I think these are some of the questions we can ask ourselves along the way is, A, how do you keep streaks alive? And B, like, what is the element of it? And for us, it was kind of with the podcast is we just figured out what worked, and we didn't try to force it. And, we didn't regiment it too much, because that's the other thing with streaks. Sometimes it's like people will say, I'll do a run streak where I'm going to run at least 3 miles, or I'm going to run at least 2 miles today. And, we just didn't have that on us, and we didn't outline every podcast. We decided, hey, we're just going to kind of roll with the punches and see what happens. And it became a joy. I can't underestimate that enough, because I just really think back to our early podcast days when we were kind of trying to come up with themes and outlines and all this other shit. And we were about four podcasts in on that going, boy, this one is, I don't know if this is the ticket, So I think the flexibility and the ability to kind of just do what really resonates with your soul and go about it from a position of love each day, that is the kind of stuff we need to be looking for. And then, streaks, like you said, come out of joy and passion for whatever you're doing.
And one of the biggest pieces of that, and I think, again, like we've mentioned that in kind of roundabout ways the last few weeks, is really understanding and being honest with who you are, right? And what's going to allow you the biggest opportunity for success next year, right? Because look, everyone, I think we get trapped in this feeling and of perception that you have to do more, or you have to do what you've always done in order to be happy, right? And one of the biggest, I think, strengths people have or can have is truly understanding their own strengths, and then but also respecting and understanding and knowing their weaknesses. And you mentioned this again. It's like, if we had have set out to be super rigid on having guests, or how many times we had to do it, we started out doing it on Mondays and Thursdays, and had to be early, and then we moved it back, and then we moved it from Monday to Tuesday. And we did make some changes along the way, but at the core of it, we also kind of understood, like, people would always ask, do you want to do, you should get sponsors, or you should do this, and we just kind of figured out, like, that's not really who we are, right? And maybe it'll make us a ton of money, or maybe it'll do this, or would it still be fun? No, so don't do it. And I think. So we say a lot of times that we joke about it because it was, I think a lot of it's luck and a lot of it's by, some by accident, but for the most part, we just said, we just we're very honest with what we know we like to do, and then the more you like something, then you end up loving it, and then it became like, it never became a chore, right? It was just, you kind of like, you crave doing it twice a week, because what you did was we cultivated, and you can do the same thing with your training, right? We cultivated an environment in how we did the podcast and the direction we wanted to go with it and what we talked about, and the freedom to be vulnerable, and the ability to not just talk about, swim, bike, run, and have professional triathletes on it to make our way as a podcast. We was like, sure, we could do that, and we could stress about it and who we're going to have on and how many times we got to mention this sponsor plug, and and that's just stress, and it would have made us not enjoy what we are doing. And we joke about all the time is like, we're going to be we're the 70 to 74 age group Kona qualifier of podcasts. We're never the best. We just outlived and out consistent at everybody because we just stuck around. And because like a lot of people start a podcast, and most people do like a few, and then they just kind of go off and done. Other things become more important. But a lot of time I don't know what I was thinking about this the other day, but there was a quote someone told me 4 or 5 years ago that said, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses, or they quit managers. And I think that is so true. And I think that is so right when it comes to the sport of triathlon. And you and I would have quit ourselves if we'd have made an environment, right? We knew we could love podcasting because we're doing it now. We knew we could love doing this twice a week because we do it now. But if we had been our own boss in a way, we had have kind of like came down with the hammer, and we got to have this many sponsors, we got to have this many clicks, we got to have, we got to share it this much on social media, we got to have this kind of return, we had this many, subscribers, and we got to make this much money on Patreon. We'd have ran ourselves to death and ended up quitting. Right. So we wouldn't have quit the podcast. We wouldn't have quit what we wanted to do. We would have quit ourselves because we were our own bosses. And I think a lot of times when people need to take breaks from the sport or think triathlon has burnt them out, is you're kind of looking in the wrong mirror, right? Because you are the manager, right? You are the boss. Like, again, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses, and that's another reason like people stick around with companies and bosses because with companies because they have great bosses. And that is so true with this sport. If you can really be honest and truthful with, what do I really want to do this year, and how can I be set up for success, right? I know I may say I want to train 15 hours a week next year, and qualify for this, but is that going to really make me happy, right? Am I going to be happy along the way, right? And that's a question everyone should ask themselves: is I really want to do this race next year in October. And I'd be through the roof and over the moon if I was able to finish this in under 13 hours. Okay, well that's awesome. That's one day in about 10 months, 11 months. Is achieving that goal and what it's going to take for you to do it, and what's it going to take away from your life, right? Less social activities, waking up earlier, more time away from your kids on the weekend, missing this or missing that. Is the happiness going to outweigh the sacrifice? Because people always use the words, what do you, and we ask this in our forum, like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And it's a broad question. Some people answer, I'm willing to sacrifice, sweets. I'm like, well, nobody said to give up sweets. I'm willing to sacrifice, waking up, staying up late and watching cat videos on YouTube. Okay, granted, you should sacrifice doing that. And like people say, I'm not willing to sacrifice time with my family. I'm not willing to sacrifice, things with my spouse or whatever it is. Because what you're willing to sacrifice, for a lot of people, knowing that is less important than understanding what someone won't sacrifice. Because that's when you know what's really, really important to someone, right? When they list their hours they can work out for a week. I've got, realistically, and you love it when you read that because you're like, they really thought about this. Realistically, I can probably do like 8 or 9 hours. And then you got some people who are like, yeah, daily job is this. I work 60 to 70 hours a week. I'm work 4 days on and 4 days off. I've got 4 kids and my wife travels. I can probably do 18 to 20. I can probably train 18 to 20 hours a week. Yeah, probably no problem. You're like, what? Like, no, you can't. It's like that's not possible. And and the people, I'm willing to sacrifice everything. I'm like, well, that's not really that great of a thing either, because you shouldn't want to sacrifice it, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You should want and love a lot of different things, because if you don't, then what you're giving up everything to do, right? And this is what so many people do when they go into triathlon and they pick up Ironman their first years. They distance themselves from friends, right? They buy this new equipment. They start hanging out with different people. They spend less time with their spouses or their kids or their family. All their focus, all their free time, it's about doing this Ironman. They put all their eggs in one basket. That's who they become. It's their identity. And then when it's taken away and the race is over, and what's left? Yeah. Same old you, right? And that's when you see like the Ironman depression, or people get burnt out. It's not that you're burnt out, it's that you mismanaged your own journey. You were the worst boss for the sustainability of your own endurance journey. That's just a fact. Like, that was one of the first things my therapist said back in the day at the ranch. He goes, you've been the CEO of your life for the last 31 years, and look where it got you. I think it's about time you gave it to someone else. And I was like, fair enough. But that's so true with like triathlon, all those things. Like, we put so much, eggs in one basket, and we think we're sacrificing, and then we sacrifice too much. And then when we look at what we got in return, and we wonder, why'd we sacrifice them? And the truth of the matter is, you don't have to sacrifice that much. You just have to love it that much. And if you can love it that much, then you'll be craving to do it. And then that's when the fulfillment comes. And when you go to races, no matter what the result is you feel this love and fulfillment from a sport that's brought you so many good and happy things, and better fitness and better health and more friends and a better lifestyle and all these great things. You're like, you're living the dream, right? Instead of waking up the next day after a race when you missed a PR by 5 minutes, or you didn't qualify for Worlds, or whatever else happened, or you got a flat tire and your world is devastated. Think about the two very different ways that happens. It's like contentment and acceptance and love versus, expectations, resentment, and, what did I sacrifice all this time for? It's like, you have to have a good balance. And again, it comes back to like knowing who you are. And again, you've always been very good about and honest. It's like, you focusing on one big race 10 months out is like a recipe for disaster if you just don't do it. In the last, month or so, like you've been training a lot more than I think I've ever known you to train in November going on December, but you're doing it in kind of like a breadcrumb kind of way.
Piecemeal.
Right? It's like yes, exactly. Right. You're like, I'm not willing to make the whole fucking loaf right now. Like, I'm not putting it in the oven. I ain't got time. I don't want to do it. I don't put that much pressure on myself. I just want to stay engaged. I'm just picking a piece of a little breadcrumb here, a little breadcrumb here, just to kind of like lead my way back to where I'm pulling a weed here, pulling a weed there. I'm not doing the whole bed today. Not doing it. My haymakers will be sore tomorrow, but I'm gonna maybe do the front side of the yard. Maybe do this, or maybe I'm gonna prep my yard so it's better in the spring. Like, you're slow. You didn't go all in, which is very, very, very hard to do for especially triathletes. It's either all in or all out. And they don't know how to do in between. And I think actually it's a positive to be able to go halfway in, because then you can kind of go 80%, 90%, 100%, 90%, 70%, 40%, 30%, back to 50, back to 60, back to 70, hang there for a little bit. All right, now I got to go for, instead of being 100% for 4 weeks, and then 0% for 5 months. And then if you take like the average out, right, of the 100% for 9 weeks and the 0% or the 10% for like 6 months, you take that average, then take the other one that's like, 50%, 50%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 60, 60, 60, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 80, 80, 80, 90, 90, 100 for a couple of weeks, then back down to 40, then back up down to 30, 20, maybe 0 for a few weeks, and back to like that average of percentage would be so much greater than the other one. Did you get that math? Did you get your calculator out trying to keep track?
Write that down. Like, what the hell did you just say? It's
the average on that, it would be so much higher. It's like, so you have to be skilled I think of knowing and kind of like pulling the reins back on yourself of knowing not when to go all the way in, so you don't ever get all the way out.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you're right, man. I said piecemeal, and I think really right now I'm 100% half in. How's that? It's like,
I love it, dude. That's perfect.
That might be the podcast title, 100% half in, but it's,
so, yeah, sometimes it's always maybe.
Yeah, exactly. again, thinking back to how we handle everything with the podcast and everything like that. And we always talked about before, kind of our whole motto is when we get together, we're like, how can we do better for our athletes today? And I used to work in marketing for a news company. And I just, I started that craziness back in the early 2000s. And I'd sit in these meetings in the whole, news industry. The product is actually fear. So you market to the fear. Like, how are we going to get people that fear of missing out, or get them scared enough to get into the news, to make sure that they know that their neighborhood's safe tonight, or whatever, these types of things. And marketing has become this behemoth of just right down your throat, kind of in your face, kind of like FOMO meets. Like, if you're not using this, you're not going to be anybody, product stuff. And, we've just kind of like, and it was such a relief because I come from the marketing back, so that's natural to me. And then as we started, I kind of had all these ideas, and you go, I don't know, let's not do that. And we kind of actually took sort of that attraction, not promotion philosophy. And really, it's all about creating an environment and trying to make something better for people. And it's these podcasts like this, when you talk about, finding love for what you're doing and really finding the truth behind the process, that I think is the important stuff in the long run. Because we could always have 10 best ways to, change your tire or get faster on the bike course, or but I mean, those things are out there, right? But those things become so shallow. And I feel like that's what marketing is now. It's just like, hey, you need this product, and then everybody buys it, and then you order it from Amazon. The next thing you know, you can't even remember what it is when it showed up. And it's sort of this hollow, process of just satisfying an itch in the moment. And I think that or at least how I like to do things now is like I say, if you don't find joy in it, if you can't find happiness, and I like what you said, are you going to be happy along the way? And really, that's the goal, right? So it's like, how do you find that happiness and find those things that really kind of get you out of bed, or, get you excited? And like always, my motto is sort of like, work out today and leave excitement for tomorrow. And that to me becomes the secret. But obviously the secret is easy to say. It's not so easy to find. So I think when we talk through things, and I think that's what I love about doing the podcast the most too, is just kind of hashing things out with you, because the answers aren't always clean, but at least the exploration of the thought process becomes front of mind. And it's something that I really enjoy. And I think that at this time of year, when you talk about streaks, and, you got Thanksgiving parties and Christmas parties and all these types of things, I mean, you just kind of got to take it day by day, man. Just look at what you got and what you feel like doing, and just stay in the ballpark, as we like to say, and feel good. And really, it's almost like, you can turn that philosophy of do what you do today to make you want to do tomorrow into doing what you're doing in November to make you know what you want to do in December, but be set up in January. And it doesn't mean you have to be in peak fitness, but it should mean that you want to be at least in peak enjoyment, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of power in finding joy in certain little workouts that you're doing, or looking forward to working on different things. We had a series of podcasts, and I think it was around this time last year, called Micro Gains or something like that, and how engaging those can be at times when you're working on little things, and then you figure it out. A lot of times that happens in swimming, I think, but still it can happen across the board. And like yesterday, I've been doing a lot of treadmill running, and I'm like, damn, we got run camp coming up. I haven't been outside in the cold, and it'll probably be a little chilly down there. And got home last night. It was getting dark, and I went out to just run my normal hill repeat over here by the pool, and they have a lot of lights over there, so it's nice. Up and down this path, and then all of a sudden, 2 strange cars showed up in the parking lot down by the golf course. And then there was another one up by the pool, up by the softball field. And I think it was about 2 Christmases ago, there was a drug deal went bad in the golf course parking lot. Somebody got shot.
In the golf course parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the winter. You know, like, so they were parked behind the snowbanks.
What were they dealing? Like blood pressure meds and Viagra?
Exactly. I don't know what happened, man, but they were parked behind the big snowbanks and something. I remember my brother and I were walking over there to walk the dog, and cops came walking up at us with their guns going, stay away, crime scene. And I was like, holy shit. So that's in my mind. So I got about 25 minutes through a 40-minute workout, and I was back there. But, I just like knowing that I felt good. I was like, I could have went 40, but I just didn't want to put my life on the line with these shady characters.
I mean, we've already had our streak broken momentarily. We don't need we didn't need the streak broken forever. But I think you made
you live from the hospital.
Yeah, seriously, we had to come up there and do a live from Beloit.
Yeah.
No, there was a few things before the drug deal gone bad at the golf course thing that I liked. It's kind of going back to, you said, talking about, everyone's got, when you look at next year, right, and we're about to send our race forms out for next year, and I think everybody has these kind of visions of what they want to do, right? I want to do this next year. I want to do this, and goals like that are great. I support them. There's a ton of value behind them. You have to obviously have a plan. But one of the biggest things that athletes struggle with is overcommitting and ruining their own ability to be happy throughout the year. And 99 times out of 100, it comes with an Ironman. Oh, well, all my friends are doing it. And you're like, that's one day. One day, your friends, you and your buddies are all going to do the same race. And guess what? You ain't even going to fucking see them most of the day. You're going to be out there alone, right? And you're all going to get done. You're going to sit under this tent, and you're going to have hopefully Snickers and Coke and pizza. And you're going to tell yourselves you're never doing this again. So that's what you're going to focus on for the next 9 months. But it's every day between now and race day that has the ability for you to be happy or to not be happy, right? What's gonna, and again, like, I think, in kind of the front of our website, and we talk about at the beginning of the podcast, is like happy and healthy. Healthy without happiness, or happiness without being healthy, like those are both hard to come by. And what you see a lot in triathlon is that people overcommit with races, or overcommit to a distance in a race, and then find themselves trapped doing something they don't want to do. When Olympics, or 70.3, or just running, like all these things that would reduce stress, free up time, increase happiness while maintaining a great level of health, like that's win after win after win after win, versus like the beat of the Ironman drum that people just keep following and following and following for no other reason that they've done it they did it last year, or they did it this year, or my friends doing it. I don't want to miss out, or I'm afraid I won't be considered a triathlete if I don't do an Ironman this year. I'm like, well, is it going to make you happy? Not race day, but the training. A lot of people can fit in their life and they do it great and they absolutely love it. They love the 6-hour rides. They love the 15 and 16, 17 hour. That's who they are. Not everyone's made like that. And if you've been through it before and it's not who you are, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not a 9-to-5er. I'm not a cubicle guy. I'm not a guy who, I don't even know how to tie a tie. Okay. I'm not a corporate world guy. That's who I am. That's also why I work my ass off as a coach with C26. I don't ever want to have to do that. I don't ever have to like walk into button up a tie and walk in somewhere. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But also I work my ass off to not do that. It's the same reason you should do things or not do things in training. Going back to like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And then going back to like, what are you not willing to sacrifice? Because those are both important. And I think when you look at your race calendar for this next year, all things should lead back to happiness. Not just for this next year, but for the year after that, the year after that, the year after that. Because we all, again, like I think I mentioned this, maybe the last podcast I did, but it seems like 7 years ago, about, we always want to add more to our lives when things are at their lowest, right? Where when stress is at the least, we always think we can pile on more, right? Oh, well, things are pretty easy. I think I can, I think we can do this, or I think I can have this other race. But what we forget is that stress is less because we haven't taken on more, right? We haven't added additional things. That's why the stress is low. It's not that we have more room. It's actually that things are just right. And that goes with everything in life. And I think, one of your, I can't remember which one it was, but I think one of the quotes you had in one of the videos is very similar to that. We're so busy wanting more things when we already have everything, and that's just, it's so true, especially with this time of year, when with Christmas coming and the stress and the presents and all and everything, and people want to do races next year and do this and do that. And I think, or people in relationships or in business, or we can take on that additional account, or we can take on this. And, we've got the time. Like, well, having extra time is a good thing, because one of the things I've been really harping on with Hayden lately is he'll get a problem. He'll be like, that's easy. And I just said, has to stop saying that, because just because it's easy right now doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Because you might be able to, it's a rattle off 4 + 4 is easy today. But tomorrow you might have to think harder about it. Doesn't mean you're not as smart. It just means that it's harder, and your easy might be someone else's hard, and vice versa. But the point of that is that you never know. If you have room for things to be easy, then enjoy it. Don't make things hard on purpose, because life is going to get that to you whether you like it or not. So if you have to always give yourself, same thing goes with like the hours in a week. Like, how many hours can you handle? Oh, I can handle, 13 or 14 max. All right, then let's kind of hang around 9 to 10, because that's probably more likely to be the successful kind of area for you anyway. You always have to give a buffer and plan for a buffer. And most athletes don't. They overcommit. They register for too many races, and then they wonder why they're kind of like, not improving and treading water. And you always have to remember, like, if you have more time, that's a good thing, right? If you're not stressed and you feel like you can add more stuff, don't, because you're not stressed for a reason, right? Don't make yourself stressed. Don't make things hard. But as a species, and especially as an athlete in a sport that's like almost solely focused on making things more confusing and more stressful and harder on ourselves, it's like, that's not always the answer. Right. The answer isn't always let's make it harder, or let's do more hours, or let's go longer. The answer is to be fulfilled and to live healthier, happier lives, and to get fitter and faster at the same time. And you can do those without overextending yourself and maximizing, so many different levels of stress.
Yeah, I think that is a tendency, right, to maximize everything. And you see it all the time with athletes when we're going along a training and feeling good, and we need more. And then it's like, yeah, I know, but eventually it catches up, if you pour on too much, and it's just a fine line. And I always like to leave a little wiggle room, especially this time of year with the athletes. We always do, I guess, with swimming or cycling. If you feel like going a little more, go for it, do your thing, but judge it in the moment, not just by the, this month looks easy or whatever like that. We'll see how that works out. It's like, when I do an Ironman last year, I shoved it all into a late season box, and it really worked out good. And I ended up, feeling really good about things, because I got a late start, but I really felt good going into the race. And of course the whole day went to shit. It was, I actually got something I need to get off my chest I've been thinking about.
Go for it, man.
Well, you know how, this is something I thought of immediately, but I didn't want to put too much blame on it or anything, but I just wanted to run it by everyone out there. You put your bike out the day before, of course. And of course it was raining most of that night, or probably half that night before the race. And I got out there and got on my bike and everything. But anyway, I got a terrible bike. It rained the whole day, whatever. And then as I got back to the room with the bike that night, my flow wheels were absolutely loaded with water.
And, yeah.
It was, I don't know, I'd never thought about it. I knew that happened, but I just wonder, You know, I mean, that can't be a good thing, right? It can't be good for your riding.
No, it's not a good thing.
You know, but I was like, it was unbelievable how much water came out.
They make wheels to weigh less. They don't make them to weigh. That's like they don't advertise, steel plated flow wheels. They advertise carbon. I mean, they even go as far as like, well, these are the carbon, carbon rim brake pad. Oh, I got aluminum up. You're adding a few ounces right there. I'm like, yeah, it makes a fucking difference if your tires are full of water. But I can guarantee you ain't the only one.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah, dude. Some of those wheel sets take on so much. I mean, if you did that race or you've done any rainy race and you didn't turn your bike over or lift it up to let it drain, there's no telling how much water was inside your frame, just inside your frame, because of the gaps in the opening from the cable and the housing, or wires or fuel boxes, whatever it is you got on your bike. Any gap that goes into your frame, it's drenched, and it's gonna be holding over. So there's no telling how much extra weight you were carrying up all those hills, both inside your frame and in the wheels.
Yeah. Yeah, because I got back home.
You probably would have won your age group. I mean, let's just be honest. You probably would have won your age group.
Honestly, I'm not. I just couldn't believe I didn't think of that, and it didn't. It just was like, holy shit, that's like a, because you feel like that big chunk of water. It's almost like a oblong tire or something, kind of waiting. I mean, just how that would happen with the physics and all that. When I got home, I cleaned everything out and I turned it upside down, and shit was just draining everywhere. It was just like, wow. Unbelievable. But everybody had the same situation. But it was just a weird thing to think about.
You've been holding that for a while. I'm glad you were able to finally get that off your chest.
I don't know, man. I don't know I don't know how to beat it, really, I guess. I guess I could tape the whole.
Yeah, you're going to have to some plumber's tape or something like that. You should be able to knock that out. Yeah. But listen, this is a place where we, can get things off our chest and vent and be who we are and say what's on our mind. And you know what? That's where we are and why we're here. You got that off your chest. I get the flu off my chest. We're back.
We're back. I do like Flow Wheels. So I do like Flow. I do like Flow Wheels, and if you guys want to sponsor us, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really do anything for you because that's just gonna be our. But sure, sponsor Mike. He's the guy who loves you. It's like going back to the. This is not like terrible sponsor. We always recommend Stroke Maker paddles for our athletes.
This is great, man.
And you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, back to the beginning.
And because I love the shape of them. I love how the holes are drilled. And we just have our athletes remove the wrist cord. And because it's makes cheating too much. And again, they make these for swimmers. Right, they make this for year-round competitive swimmers, who have great strokes, and so they got the cord around the wrist and the cord around the finger. But I tell the athletes we work with, that's like take off the wrist cord because it doesn't allow you to cheat. Because a lot of triathletes need to work on certain parts of their stroke. And I got this tip from an Olympian swimmer that I grew up swimming year-round with. She was an open water nationalist, gold medalist in the Olympics, then turned triathlete. Anyway. We reached out to Stroke Makers, like the first couple of weeks we had the podcast on about being a sponsor or something, and and
send a link to the podcast because you had talked about
the podcast, and they were like, "We do not recommend we cannot." Basically they were saying you guys suck and shouldn't be telling anybody what to do about anything with Stroke Makers because you have to have the wrist cord on. I mean, they were furious. They were like, we want nothing to do with your podcast because you have to have the wrist cord on. Nothing that we're saying is viable if you don't have the wrist cord on. I'm like, oh my God. This is not going over real well right now. That's probably why we don't have any sponsors or ads either, because we started with Stroke Makers and they're like, we have to have it on there. I'm like, no, you don't. That's actually not true.
Dude, yeah, I thought that was a slam dunk. I mean, we had a whole podcast basically dedicated to listen to this, and we like your podcast, we like everything, but we can't endorse the no wrist cord strap. And I was like, come on, man, we got like 35
That's
fucking
fine.
listeners.
We can't endorse the strap. That's fine. We'll butt heads. It's not like we were saying you have to wear these shoes without laces. I mean, that's not what we were saying. We're just saying the wrist cord is detrimental for a lot of athletes because it allows you to kind of cheat your stroke and not have good form.
Yeah,
Whatever
well,
stroke maker.
kudos
we
to
still
them,
send
man.
away.
They got all our sales pitching without having to give us money for it. So I guess they win.
Yeah.
It's not like we're not pitching them anymore.
Who the rookies are. That shows who the rookies are. That's it. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for sticking by us last 6 years and through a little bit of a week-long hiatus. Hopefully it makes you appreciate us a little bit more in our twice-a-week podcast that we bring you. We'll come to you again on Thanksgiving. If you don't listen to us between now and then, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Soak it in. Enjoy yourself. Be grateful. And think about where you want to be this time next year, what'll make you the happiest, and then plot that course, make it achievable, make it attainable, and make it fun. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And if you're looking for somebody to help you map out that course for a happy and healthy 2023, look no further than our coaches tab. Peruse through there for your perfect match, or you can click on and buy one of our 2023 race-specific plans. For next year, those are good till the end of the month. And as always, if you need anything specifically, you can reach out to Mike. He's at CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Good to have you back.
Dude. Yeah, glad to be back. I'll see you Thursday.
Deal.